Hey, folks, it is here, Election Day 2024. Welcome to the show this morning. I am Todd Peterson, host of the American Tribune Live. I'm so glad you could join me today. And look, folks, we are a live show streaming on Rumble and X right now. I threw it on our YouTube channel just to see what happens. We don't get a lot of viewers over there. And got to tell you right now, I couldn't stream it on Facebook because God forbid we talk about Donald Trump winning the election and the outright lies that Democrats and corporate media pundits are still pushing, being redundant. They are part of the uniparty that Donald Trump and his supporters are looking to crush today in the polls. And I'll just tell you right now, Donald Trump wins tonight. They announced it tonight because folks are getting out to vote. And if you're watching right now and have not voted yet, as soon as we hit end on this broadcast, get in your car, drive to the polls, pack up all the neighbors along your street, go grab your family members, go grab your friends. They need to go to the polls too and vote for Donald Trump. Folks, I'm not being hyperbolic. I really think this is the last fair election. They're not fair to begin with, but this is the last election that's going to matter if Donald Trump loses. If Donald Trump loses and Kamala Harris wins, you're going to see to America what happened to California. I got a clip later on with Elon Musk talking about that, but when Reagan offered amnesty to all the illegals all those years ago, California went from a red state to a communist shithole. It is a blue state. There is no redemption for California. Make no mistake, that's what will happen to America if Kamala Harris wins, because imagine that. All the swing states have had millions of illegals imported to their borders: Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. They're going to give them amnesty. They're going to give them citizenship, and those illegals will vote Democrat. We won't have swing states anymore. We won't have elections that matter because Democrats will have taken control of the country. Again, not hyperbolic. I really do think this is the last election that's going to matter in your lifetimes if we allow Donald Trump to lose. So don't let that happen. Go out and vote Donald Trump. Your elections, your nation depend on it. And it's not just me saying that. You look around Trump's campaign, he's got RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, and Ron Paul. Get the libertarian vote out there as well. Everyone of significance recognizes the moment we are in right now. We've got to get Donald Trump across the finish line. And look, I put money on it. Put money on Donald Trump to get over 310 electoral votes. I think it's in play. I think it's going to happen. The polls suggest that. The early voting suggests that. But they will cheat. Democrats will cheat. That's what they do. Make it too big to rig today, folks. Again, thanks for joining the show. I'm following along in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your predictions. Donald Trump needs every vote because they will try to steal it from you. And just a little housekeeping here before we get into the show here. We got some clips. We got some commentary. I'm just going to be talking about my thoughts on the election today, what's significant, what to look out for. And just a reminder, too, if you're watching on this Rumble channel, you're watching on the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson, I'll be hopping over to our main channel on Rumble, the American Tribune. I'll be sitting down with my Freedom from the Press podcast co-host, Jason Robertson. We do shows every Friday, but we're going live tonight at 6:30 Central on Rumble and on our Twitter channels. So catch that. We're going to be doing live election coverage. We'll be there as the East Coast announces who's going to get those states. We'll be here when Minnesota in the Midwest start announcing their results as well. So join us as we watch Donald Trump sweep to victory today. But again, you got to go vote in order for Donald Trump to win. Vote Trump and vote Republican down ballot. Let's give him the House. Let's give him the Senate. And let's give him the popular mandate as well. I would love to see Minnesota turn red. I think it's in play. I don't know if he will carry it. Nobody knows right now, but he campaigned here. I've been seeing ads all over the place. And just as a reminder, Hillary Clinton only carried Minnesota by 1.5 points in 2016. Think about how much has changed since 2016. People didn't know Trump. They believed the media was being honest with them back then. So much has changed. We've witnessed Joe Biden's disastrous administration, Kamala Harris right alongside with him. Nobody likes Kamala Harris. Nobody trusts the media anymore. Donald Trump, I think, has a chance in Minnesota. He definitely has a chance at the popular mandate. Let's make sure we give that to him. Just a little more housekeeping here. If you're watching the show last Thursday, you probably started seeing me talk about how I was just having a conversation with a delivery man, started talking politics. Like, they're out there. People are out there everywhere. And you know what's amazing? We're not afraid to show our support for Donald Trump anymore. In 2016, you didn't talk about it. You voted for Trump. You didn't let anyone know. In 2020, you were beaten over the head, ostracized at work if you showed up with a MAGA hat. 2024, no one cares anymore. They are proud to support the one person standing up for your rights, standing up for this country. I love the Trump support out there. We are out of the bag. We're never going back in. We're wearing MAGA hats. I've seen friends show up at gyms in a MAGA hat. I've seen people on airplanes. I mean, I went on an airplane with a F. Joe Biden mask a couple years ago. Nobody cares anymore. You're getting rounds of applause. You're getting pats on the back. People have had enough with the corrupt uniparty, the lying media. Trump support is everywhere. That is a ship that is never going away, and the establishment knows it. That's why they're so afraid of this election. And just one more reminder, folks, if you're watching the show live, if you're catching it later, head over to the Rumble channel, the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. Give us a like, give us a follow. It gives us a boost here, and that helps out this show. People ask, how can you support the show? Right now, not monetized, not looking for your endorsements of anything. I'm not trying to pitch you gold or anything like that. Just give me a follow. Helps me in the algorithm a little bit. All right, but let us dive into election coverage. I said earlier that this is the most important election of our lifetimes. People bill every 4 years as the most important election of our lifetimes, but this year is different. We have come up to the end of the line, folks. In 2008 and 2012, 2016, yes, the machinations were in place. Yes, the Democrats were rigging it. Yes, we were always voting for a Republican that was part of the uniparty anyways. We had John McCain and Mitt Romney on the ballot as Republicans. Do you think they really stood for America First values, or were they just doing the bidding of the lobbyists and the special interests and the corporate groups and the military-industrial complex, big pharma? We voted for Republican because, well, I'm not going to vote for Democrat, but nothing ever really would have been done anyways. Donald Trump is a different beast. They're afraid of him for that. And Democrats have now imported enough voters. And this is the single issue that we've got to focus on. It's the importation of tens of millions of illegals in this country. Yes, they commit crimes. Yes, they attack women. Yes, they assault women, murder women. So much for feminists out there like, oh, let a woman choose. Well, she wants to choose to be safe in this country from illegal, violent criminals who were released from prisons in South America. But nobody talks about that. But now they've imported all those people that they are going to allow to vote. If Kamala Harris wins, illegals will be given the right to vote via citizenship, and we will not have a country anymore where elections matter. I referenced California earlier when Reagan did his amnesty deal in the 1980s. And look, history is not going to be kind to Ronald Reagan. Said some great things. His policies were disastrous for this country. California was always a red state. And once we gave millions of people the right to vote that should not be here, certainly do not deserve the right to vote, California turned blue, and it has been blue ever since. Now, as Elon Musk points out here, and we'll just let Elon talk, he notices that California could only go so far because if you lived in California, you could move. You could move to a free state. You can move to a state with less taxes, with less crime, with less illegal immigrants. Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, when they're sitting down this conversation, both used to live in California, and they moved to Texas because they could, because they had options. If Kamala Harris wins, this entire country becomes California. Where else do you go? Where else can you go that is not taken over by Democrats, run by corrupt DAs that would put you in prison for trying to defend yourself and your family? There are no other options short of leaving the country altogether. And where do you go from there even still, right? So we've got to vote for Donald Trump to prevent that from happening. Let's just start off with Elon Musk talking about that as well. Sitting down with Joe Rogan yesterday, and I love this. Joe Rogan, after chatting with Elon Musk, endorsed Donald Trump. This is a guy that was going to interview Trump. He offered to interview Kamala Harris. She declined. She tried to set the rules for him. He's like, forget that. I'm in Austin. You can come down here and sit down for 3 hours. That's the show's format. Kamala Harris knew she couldn't talk off script for 3 hours, bailed. And Joe Rogan, after talking to Trump, Vance, and Musk within the last week, might have understood a little bit more what was going on. Good for Rogan. He was a little late to the party, but better late than never, endorsing Donald Trump. And like I said, everyone of significance, everyone that is not completely brainwashed by the corporate media propagandists, they realize what's at stake. You should too, folks. But here's Elon Musk talking about what will happen to this country if Kamala Harris wins.
Yeah, I think freedom is fundamentally at stake in the election tomorrow, and we'll know. I think we'll know by the end of the day tomorrow. I don't think it's going to take. It's not going to be like days after the election. I think we'll know tomorrow.
Are you optimistic?
I am currently optimistic, but the biggest factor here is that men need to vote. That is the biggest issue. So I don't know what the reason is, but men just vote at a much lower rate than women.
I think it's like 9%, right? Someone just told me that today.
It's a big difference. I'm just like saying this is a message to the men out there: vote like your life depends on it, because I think it does.
Yeah, it does, guys. I don't know what else to say. It's not hyperbolic. It's not an exaggeration. It's not sensational. I really think this election is that consequential. And men, you got to get out and vote. I've got too many friends in my orbit. You probably do too. They're just like, yeah, politics, it's corrupt. Both sides lie. Like, yeah, that's true to an extent. But if you cannot see the clear choice between Harris and Trump, it's never been more plain. You can vote for the party of death, genocide, and censorship. You're talking about the establishment that wants to get your young men and women killed. They want to start war in Ukraine. They're rattling sabers with China and Taiwan. You're looking at the chaos in Israel and Gaza right now. The Democrat Party, part of the establishment, supports all of that. They're the party that's going to nationalize Roe and codify Roe across the land. I have more comments on that in just a second, because you're looking out there saying, well, I'm too good to vote for Donald Trump because he doesn't support the preborn or the unborn. And they say, I need a candidate that's going to defend every last life. Well, I have comments on that as well. But men, you got to get out there and vote. And now here's Musk talking about the Californication of America.
This is the change.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I view this election as a turning point, like a fork in the road of destiny that is incredibly important. I've not been politically active until this election, and the reason I've been politically active this election is because I think if we don't elect Trump, I think we will lose. We will lose democracy in this country. We will lose the two-party system. And let me explain why. So there's only like six or seven swing states. The margin of victory in those states is small, often like 10 or 20,000 votes. What the Democrat administration has been doing is importing vast numbers of illegals into swing states. You can look at the numbers on the actual government website, meaning you don't take my word for it. You can just look at the numbers as reported by the government, which is controlled by the Democrats. And what we're seeing is triple-digit increases in the number of illegals in every swing state. In some cases, 700% increases. These are gigantic numbers. So if you have a state that has a 10 or 20,000 vote margin, and you put 200,000 illegals into that state, you 10x you swamp the. It's not a swing state anymore. It's going to vote blue. And then once the swing states vote blue, there is no election anymore. There's only a Democrat primary,
Which is so crazy. And it's so crazy that people are fine with that.
Now, Musk is going to continue. We'll let him continue those thoughts there, but understand that the first step of importing all these people was to get boosted representation in Congress. So states like California, Illinois, Minnesota, where I live, we saw all these illegals come in. And what that does is it gives disproportionate representation in Congress because illegals are counted in the census. This is the same for the Electoral College. Wherever these illegals have gone, their living in America now gives more weight in our elections. So California lost a lot of Americans. They moved out of California. They were done with it. They moved to red states, Texas, Florida, Tennessee. We saw this happen. And again, for the life of me, people leave California and then they still go and vote Democrat in these red states. Like, what is wrong with you people? Do you understand why you left California? You have beautiful weather, some of the most beautiful geography in the country, but you know that you left because you couldn't stand the Democrat rule anymore that allowed crime to go unpunished, that allowed the state to remove the child from your home if you didn't get them vaccinated or affirm their trans identity. Everything that you hated about California was because of the Democrat Party, and you leave California and still vote Democrat. Like, I simply don't understand it. Wake up, sheep. But then you got more representation in Congress because you had the illegals, not even U.S. citizens, but now you have more House districts. Now you have greater weight of Democrats in Congress because we counted illegals in the census. And part two, like Elon Musk explains, the end game is to give them all citizenship and let them vote. Do you think illegals who know that it's the Democrat Party that brought them here, that gives them so many handouts, more handouts than American citizens? You come here as an illegal, you get a place to stay, you get food to eat, you get a stipend, you get free health care, your kids get to go to the school systems. These guys get everything, and they know who butters their bread. They're not going to vote to stop that gravy train. They're voting Democrat, and they're telling their kids and their kids to vote Democrat. And like Elon says, once you've got hundreds of thousands or millions of these people in a already tight swing state race, it's over. There's no more thing as a swing state. And now every election doesn't really matter. You got Democrats with their uniparty control across the country. But Musk continues here. Let's listen.
Well, I guess people on the left will be fine with that because they think that's a good idea.
Well, they just want to win. They just want to win.
Correct. Like the thing is, one does not need actually any grand conspiracy theory for this. You just have to look at the simple matter of incentives. If the Democrat Party wants to win, like basically achieve permanent victory, all they need to do is turn the swing states. Turn the swing states blue. They have permanent victory. And then we're a one-party state, and then they will keep doing that. Obviously, they will keep stacking the deck. by bringing in vast numbers of illegals into the swing states, keep stacking it so that the next election, each successive election, will be worse than the last one. And that's what's happening.
Again, he's got more thoughts. I have thoughts too. How does this not frighten everybody? And nobody is talking about this. You know how the left frames it up, how Democrats frame it up, how the state media propagandists frame it up? They say everybody's human. You know, I always said, if I were one of those dudes, I would try to come to America too, because it's a great country. But that's not the mindset of the people coming in. They're just boarding a train, getting on a bus, paying their coyotes, coming across the border, because they know what waits for them here. It's freebies. These dudes are coming here for freebies. They're not seeking asylum. They're not persecuted politically. They're poor in their country and they want to get free stuff in America. It is what it is. Most of these people should not be here. It'd be really simple if you said, look, I'm going to build a wall. I'm going to station troops at the border. I'm not going to give you anything if you happen to get in. You would watch immigration go down overnight. It's really simple to do that. But Kamala Harris wanted none of it. She lied for 3 years saying, I'm going to discover the root causes of immigration. And it's pretty obvious you brought them here because you wanted them here. There's no root causes to discover. Whatever these people's motivations are, you wanted them here. You wanted to get more representation in Congress. You wanted higher counts in the Electoral College. And ultimately, you wanted to import millions upon millions of voters for the Democrat Party. And like Musk says, it starts in the swing states, and then you just move on to the next swing state until that every state votes Democrat. You get a lot of hate for saying the great replacement theory. You are being replaced overnight. Your vote counts less and less each day that we bring these people in who are just waiting to be given citizenship.
Happening. If you want to see, like, well, is this actually going to happen? Well, look at California. California is supermajority Dem, 70% Dem. A month ago, they passed a law making it illegal to show ID in any election in California.
So just to let that sink in. Not only do you not have to show an ID, it is illegal to show an ID. That is the exact opposite of what we should be doing. It should be illegal to not show an ID when you go to vote. There was a great meme going around. It's a dude getting pulled over a police officer and he says, license and registration, please. And the dude is like, it's okay, I'm going to vote. Like, you need an ID. I can't believe we're having this conversation. You need an ID to function in society. We've done man on the street videos where you go around to black neighborhoods and they're like, I got 5 IDs. Yeah, I got an ID. The DMV is like 2 blocks down the corner. Like, everybody has an ID. It is not racist to ask for an ID. It is not disenfranchising to ask for an ID. The only reason they don't want you to have to show an ID is so they can cheat. That's it. You're not a conspiracy theorist. You're not wearing a tinfoil hat. The only reason they don't want you to show an ID is so they can cheat.
So a friend of mine went to vote in Palo Alto because he was like, "Is this for real?" He tried to show his ID, and they reacted like if you show a cross to a vampire. Okay, they're like, "No, we can't even look at that ID." It is illegal for them to even look at your ID if you want to present it in California.
Why?
For any election at all, even like city council.
What law?
How many people know about this? And this is, if Democrats weren't allowed to lie, and I've got clips for the show too of Democrats lying every single campaign rally, pretty much everything they say is a lie. Donald Trump did this, Donald Trump suggested that. It's all a lie. If they couldn't lie, they would have nothing to run on. People out there are just like, I don't believe it because it's so absurd. No, they don't want to trans every kid in America. No, they wouldn't take your kid away if you don't affirm their trans identity. No, it's not illegal to show an ID in California. Like, the Democrat policies are so absurd. People can't wrap their head around it. They refuse to believe what is happening because in their little worldview, they're still operating under the paradigm that Democrats and Republicans are arguing over tax rates. Well, we don't tax the rich enough. Well, we should have these tax rates. They have no idea what their party, what they are voting for, actually supports. I don't like to focus on abortion so much. There are much more pressing issues. You look at the border situation alone that Elon Musk is detailing here. That alone is the disqualifying factor for voting Democrat. You are voting to absolutely ruin this country because you've been fed a lie that you're a better human being, recognizing that everyone else is a human being too. Like, we are not talking about the worth of a human being, of an illegal immigrant. We are talking about the fact that this is America. Countries have to have borders. And I like having my vote count. I like having my politicians represent my interests in Washington, D.C. That's it. I'm not talking about their worth as a human being. We're all equal under the eyes of God. But in America, I am worth more than an illegal immigrant because I'm an American citizen. End of discussion here.
Logical reason other than to cheat would you ever have that law?
The reason is to cheat.
It's only like you can never make an argument any other way. And I think 84% of people polled believe that you should show ID to vote. So it's against the will of the people.
Yes, and we are extremely rare. We're an outlier in not requiring ID.
Simply stunning. Again, people have no idea this is happening. They believe the lies from Democrats and the media. You should have to show an ID. In a perfect world, the voting age would be raised. You would have to be a net contributor to society. That means paying taxes, or if Trump wins, he's talked about banning income taxes, abolishing the IRS. That would be ideal. But either you pay taxes, you own property. You need to be a net contributor to society. If you take in more than you give back, you don't get to vote. You got to be older, so you have some life experience. You can't be some 18-year-old kid in high school getting fed propaganda by your teacher, and I'm going to go vote for Kamala Harris, and Tim Walz was a teacher, so I'll go vote for him. Voting needs to be harder, but at the bare minimum, you need to show an ID to vote. And again, the only reason they don't is so they can cheat. I don't know what else to tell you, folks.
Basically, almost every country on earth requires ID to vote. So as soon as you ban ID for voting, it makes fraud impossible to prove. Because how do you trace the fraud?
Right.
Here's the other interesting thing about elections. We have no way to audit elections. Even if you had an ID, our current system makes it nearly impossible to know the actual outcomes. That's why it's so easy for Democrats to just be like, oh, I'm going to announce the victor. Joe Biden won. Even if Donald Trump wins, you can't verify it necessarily. You trust that the process works, but the government runs the elections. Do you trust the government? Like, do you trust the media? So the media reports the outcomes of the election. The government is the one that's overseeing the elections, and these are the last two institutions on earth that you should trust. Our voting system is completely broken. You should be voting on the same day. You should be presenting an ID. And if a machine wants to count it, that's fine, but every single ballot should be hand counted. The fact that they don't do that, again, proves they just want to cheat. And again, the cheat will be in today, folks. You need to go out and vote for Donald Trump. And like I keep saying, like all these people are saying, drag people with you to the polls. Everyone needs to vote for Donald Trump. This is not partisan Todd talking. This is not a MAGA cultist. Anyone reasonable is voting for Donald Trump because that is the only option. You have Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Kamala Harris will destroy this country once and for all. Again, not being hyperbolic. Elon Musk just laid out the case. I've made the same case. You give citizenship to all these people. That's it. Your vote doesn't matter anymore because your vote in a swing state is up against 10 times that number of illegal immigrants that are now going to vote for their little gravy train still. So simply unreal stuff right here, folks. You got to get out and vote today. Most important election of our lifetimes, possibly the last election of consequence in our lifetimes if Kamala Harris wins. We have so much to talk about. I talked about how they were running on pure lies. I'm not a fan of censoring speech, but something has to be done to hold these politicians and this media ruling class accountable. Just take a listen to Barack Obama. I think this was 2 days ago on the campaign trail. And you saw like this haggard looking Michelle. She looks absolutely awful right now. Barack Obama's looking old too, but take a listen to this. Take a listen to these absolute lies that Democrats are pushing. This is all they have.
Maybe you're Muslim American or Jewish American, and you are heartbroken and furious about the ongoing bloodshed in the Middle East and worried about the rise of anti-Semitism. Why would you place your faith in somebody who instituted a so-called Muslim ban?
Instituted a Muslim ban. I don't think we debunked this on our show last week when we went through all the Trump hoaxes. Do you know who instituted the Muslim ban? The so-called Muslim ban? That was Barack Hussein Obama. And do you know why he went after those specific countries that happen to be Muslim? We didn't ban Muslim countries. We banned known terrorist states who happen to be majority Muslim. And it was Barack Hussein that put that policy in place and that Donald Trump continued because Donald Trump is not a moron who hates this country. Joe Biden reversed the ban, allowing unknown number of terrorists or potential terrorists or just people that don't need to be here. We don't need those people in this country. Donald Trump put a ban on those states because they are sponsors of Muslim terrorism. I don't want those people anywhere near this country. It was not a Muslim ban because you know how many Muslim countries weren't on the list, including the most populous Muslim country in the world, Indonesia? Indonesians can come to America, or they could under Donald Trump. Now everybody can come under Joe Biden. The Muslim ban is such a lie. It is so easily disproven. But there's Hussein out there saying, like, oh, Trump did a Muslim ban. He hates Muslims.
Down for pleasantries with Holocaust deniers.
He's referencing a Mar-a-Lago dinner with Nick Fuentes. Just for the record, it was Kamala Harris and the Democrat Party that did not select Jewish Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro precisely because he is Jewish, and they can't be seen by their radical left-wing pro-Hamas base to be supporting Israel in the slightest. And so they went with this absolutely corrupt, lying scumbag of human being, Tim Walz, because they thought he was vanilla. It turns out a lot of stuff came out about him. Again, I did a 2-hour show on Tim Walz being a serial liar. Go to the American Tribune Live channel with Todd Peterson to check out that full clip. Tim Walz is just an awful human being. I'm sure Shapiro has skeletons in his closet as well, but he wasn't picked because he is Jewish. And on that note, too, CNN ran a spot noticing that Kamala Harris was running pro-Israel ads in Pennsylvania, where they have a Jewish governor, and pro-Hamas ads in Michigan, where there's a large Muslim Arab population. The Harris campaign, just full of it. Pro-Israel in Pennsylvania, pro-Hamas in Michigan, because they are just playing to their bases. Nobody cares in the Harris campaign what happens one way or the other. They will just lie to you to get their vote. And then wait for this comment from Hussein right here.
Who said that there were very fine people on both sides of a white supremacist rally.
Barack Obama, days leading up to this election, repeated the lie that Donald Trump said there were fine people on both sides. I have literally covered this, not because I even wanted to, but because they keep saying it in every single live broadcast I do. Kamala Harris in the debate, Joe Biden in the debate, Joe Biden to launch his presidential campaign, Hussein right here, mainstream media pundits, and we're being nice calling them mainstream, they're state propagandists. They have all repeated the easily debunked lie that Donald Trump called these people fine people. He said, I totally condemn neo-Nazis and white supremacists. I'm not talking about them, but you had regular people that just don't want to see statues torn down, parks renamed, schools renamed, Antifa marching in the street, BLM burning down your streets. There are simply Americans that don't want this woke progressive communism to take over their country. Barack Hussein, though, repeats the lie that Donald Trump said there were fine people on both sides. These people are absolutely despicable. Barack, Harris, Biden, all of them, they are absolutely disgusting human beings to lie so blatantly. They know that they're telling a lie. These sheep in the audience, though, they've never seen the full clip. They trust CNN. They trust Barack here. This is what we're up against, folks. There are still people that believe the fine people hoax. And if you believe that, you are willing to believe anything coming out of the mouths of these just corrupt uniparty demons. Simply stunning stuff here. But we're not done. Oprah took the stage because why wouldn't Oprah take the stage? They're all connected to Diddy and Epstein. But this is what she had to say. And again, when you talk about lies, my goodness.
Don't get to sit this one out. If we don't show up tomorrow, it is entirely possible that we will not have the opportunity to ever cast a ballot again.
I believe in the longer clip, she was referring to women specifically. This is how they lie. They are going after these deluded female votes. And I don't think if you asked Oprah, what is a woman? Is a trans man a woman? Like, she wouldn't answer that question, but she'll go out there and say, women. Donald Trump is such a misogynist. They're talking about repealing the 19th Amendment. You won't ever be able to vote again. You won't be able to control your own body, which is basically just saying you won't be able to kill your own kids. And talking about abortion again, didn't want to, but this is what they're pushing. They are convincing women, and then they're trying to convince dads and would-be grandparents that it's okay for your daughter, your wife, to get an abortion, murder your potential grandchild. Women have the right to choose. They choose who to sleep with. They choose who to get married. They choose when to have kids. You don't get to choose to murder your baby. We outlaw a lot of things in society. You're not allowed to just walk down the street and murder someone. Why are we allowing someone just to murder their baby? But she wants to fearmonger you. They all want to fearmonger you. You need the right to choose. Donald Trump's going to take away the right to choose. He's going to take away your right to vote. Like, these are such absurd lies. And again, people are cheering for that. Yeah, I'm going to go vote for Kamala Harris so I can vote again. These are the differences too, because people are going to say, well, weren't you just fear-mongering, Todd? Weren't you just saying that you'll never get to vote again if Donald Trump loses? Oh, make no mistake, we'll be allowed to vote. Our votes just won't matter at all because they'll be just destroyed by all the illegal immigrants voting in numbers that I can't compete with. They won't take away our right to vote. They'll still let us think that we are making a difference and deciding our leaders, but our votes won't matter because the count is so insane against our advantage. All the illegals voting when they get citizenship will make my vote obsolete. So that's what I'm saying, and that is a fact. Illegals who get citizenship, because there are so many of them in this country, will make voting obsolete. It's not that they're going to take away the right to vote necessarily, although social credit scores, you can make the case that at some point they're just going to be like, you know what, we're kind of over this democracy thing. But Oprah, when she says this, straight up lying. Donald Trump, number one, has never said that. Number two, Donald Trump simply wouldn't do that because that's not what he's about, but they'll lie to you about that. You won't have a right to vote anymore, apparently. Says the party that hates the Constitution so much, we're going to censor your speech, we're going to take away your guns, we're going to force a vaccine on you. It is simply stunning what people will believe when Oprah or Kamala or Hussein says it. The fear-mongering is simply off the charts. But these people are disgusting. They are literal demons in society for pushing these lies. And speaking of demons here, folks, we got to play some clips today. Donald Trump has to win. The number one reason he has to win is simply to save this country. But there would be some additional cherry on top moments too. It would be putting all these smug, lying pieces of garbage in their place. You all have family members that are attacking you as racist and sexist. I certainly do in my family. How can you support Donald Trump? He hates women. How can you support Donald Trump? He's a Nazi. I can't wait to see all these liberal tears. The meltdowns, though, on MSNBC would be absolutely fantastic. And again, I'm not saying that would be better than Trump winning. Trump just needs to win to save this country. But the bonus for that would be hacks like Joy Reid. Can you imagine Joy Reid's reaction when she's talking about the election tonight and they announced Donald Trump's the winner? She might lose it. She's already lost it, but I would love to see that. But here's Joy Reid panicking. She is panicking. She is fear-mongering. This is just a diluted rant from Joy Reid, and Trump hasn't even won yet. Take a look at this.
In our final sprint, having arrived at that point in the election season where basically we on this side of the TV screen have said all we can. We've laid out the stakes in this crucial election.
We have campaigned for Kamala as much as possible. We have told you as many lies as possible to delude you, the American citizen, to brainwash you. I've done all my brainwashing from the CIA script. Here we go.
Where one side stands for freedom while the other meets the textbook definition of fascism, namely a far-right dictatorial regime like...
The next time, and again, hopefully Trump wins. I think Trump will win. But if they throw out the word fascist or Nazi, ask them to define their terms. My friend, my family member, what do you mean by fascist? They won't give you a coherent answer to what fascist means. They're like, Donald Trump's a fascist. I saw a great argument. It was on Jubilee. Jubilee is this YouTube channel. They put either a conservative in the middle around 20 libs, or they put one lib around 20 conservatives, and they debate stuff like this. And one guy just said, can you define fascism? And this idiot Dem was like, well, that's when one person has ultimate authority and he coalesces power around the executive branch. And this guy was like, do you know that the president is the commander in chief? Like, can you think of anything more fascist? And he's operating this guy's definition of authoritarian, consolidating power. He's like, one person is the commander in chief. They're in charge of the entire military apparatus, all the nuclear codes, all the nuclear buttons. How large is our armed force right now? All the armed forces. That is already pretty much fascism, according to your definition, you brainwashed lib, you deluded Democrat. The commander in chief already controls the military. Whatever else happens, it doesn't get any worse than controlling the military. Did you see Donald Trump abuse that power? Of course he didn't. But just ask them next time to define their terms, and they'll stare stupidly at you, and then you just walk away, because how do you talk to these idiots?
Hitler's Germany or Franco's Spain or Mussolini's Italy, but also...
That's where we're at. Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin. He's all these guys. Trump's all the bad guys in world history combined and worse.
Also, white-ruled South Africa before Mandela.
I'll save the comments on that. We'll keep going. But we'll come back to the white comment about South Africa. If I have any viewers in let's do it right now. If I have any viewers in South Africa, one of my business partners, Will Tanner, does fantastic, absolutely fantastic threads on X about Rhodesia, about South Africa. things were doing really well in Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, and South Africa before Mandela, and now they just hate white people. They've codified anti-white laws. They allow blacks to murder whites over there. Their economies have gone to hell. Their farmlands have gone to hell. Rhodesia was the breadbasket of Africa, and when they seized all the property from white farmers, it went to hell because nobody knew how to function otherwise. So there are comments to be made about turning South Africa into America. We're watching that happen out. You have selective justice. The Daniel Penny case, prosecutors are referring to him as the white man that held Neely down and turns out didn't even kill him because Neely still had a pulse when police came onto that New York City subway train. But they will absolutely target you because of your race. That's it. They want this race communist South Africa model in America, and nobody should want that. And so when we talk about white nationalism, we're talking about functioning societies, but Joy Reid has to make it sound like a bad thing. But like, nobody wants to go live in South Africa right now because it is decidedly anti-white and just pro-blacks can do whatever they want. This is not a healthy society whatsoever.
And the black majority took control, or Vladimir.
And to be clear, it is not that it is because it's a black majority, it's because of what that black majority does to everybody else. Big distinction.
Putin's Russia, Viktor Orban's Hungary, or Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela today, that suppresses the rights of women and minorities, uses the military to execute the whims of a strongman dictator, and controls and suppresses the press, education, the arts.
Oh god, this is brutal. We have like 2 more minutes, Joy Reid. We have definitive proof from the Twitter files, from Missouri v. Biden. Your government under Joe Biden and Democrats and the establishment and the Uniparty and Kamala Harris and everything that Donald Trump is running against, everything the America First movement stands against, we have definitive proof that your U.S. government under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris colluded with big tech to censor your right to speech. I have platforms on Facebook. I have platforms on YouTube. We have a lot of big tech presence. The Biden administration, alongside Kamala Harris, actively worked against us to censor us, have us demonetized, get us banned. And we're a small outlet. You can imagine what they did to larger outlets as well. They absolutely hate your right to free speech. And when Donald Trump goes after the press, it's because they're fake news. SNL featured Kamala Harris this weekend in clear violation of FCC law, giving unequal airtime to candidates. There are no consequences for that. There's no punishment for that. People aren't going to prison for that, even though they should. They got called out, and so they even admitted they were wrong by giving Donald Trump free airtime. They gave him a free 90-second ad spot during Sunday Night Football because they realized the mistake they made, and they knew what they were doing. They just got caught doing it. These people hate the idea of a free press. If they wanted a free press, they would have no lies to tell anymore. If the Washington Post, New York Times, if Facebook didn't censor, and we could actually tell people what the Democrat Party stands for, just the awful hatred, the demonization of folks, calling us garbage, spreading lies like fine people, the lies about Donald Trump and his supporters. No one would vote for Democrats if they didn't have complete media coverage. So something needs to be done about the media. They're afraid of just having X and Rumble get the truth out. Make no mistake, Kamala Harris has said Elon Musk has lost his privilege to run this company. Elon Musk stands to lose Twitter, and we stand to lose freedom on Twitter if Kamala Harris wins, because they hate the idea of free speech. Why are we talking about this? How is this not obvious to everybody? But Joy Reid, every single person she can name, Putin, Orban, Maduro, Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, Donald Trump, is all of these bad people. And it's like, Joy, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did all of these things that you're fear-mongering about right now. It is simply unreal.
Rewrites history to suit a favored and dominant racial class.
Rewrites history like the 1619 Project, Joy Reid. Like, all they can do is lie and project. They're literally telling you that you're a awful person for being white because 400 years ago a slave ship came over to America, and guess what? Slavery was the norm until white people in America, white people in England abolished the practice. That's it. But they'll never tell you that.
And foments extravagant corruption in order to enrich the dictator.
Burisma, Ukraine, China, Moscow payments. Joe Biden, you want to talk corrupt? But sure, Donald Trump's the corrupt one. Like, it's... I don't know if Joy Reid believes these lies. I think she does. I think Joy Reid is that mentally unstable that she's actually bought into these Trump lies at this point. And unfortunately, so have her viewers. But it's like, how do you undo this? How do you undo all these lies? That's what we're up against.
and his friends. We've warned you about Donald Trump's profound unfitness for office. From his
Stop on the unfitness too. Like all they can do is lie. They lied for 4 years about Joe Biden's mental fitness. Donald Trump will do a podcast in the morning, fly and do a town hall, fly and do a rally, tweet all night hilariously. Donald Trump is doing just fine. Yes, he's 78. Yes, he's getting older. But they lied to you about Joe Biden's mental fitness. And now they're trying to make this election a comment on, oh, Donald Trump's too old and he's not fit to be president because of his age. It's like, stop. You covered for Biden.
Theft of classified documents and attempted insurrection, to his clear cognitive and physical decline, to what he plans to do if he returns to power, threatening to lock up or even execute his political opponents.
So the execution comment is related to the Liz Cheney hoax, who is a gigantic warmonger. Donald Trump, let's debunk it right here. Donald Trump said Liz Cheney should have guns trained on her face so she understands the horror of war. He wasn't talking about a firing squad, even though a lot of our traitors in Washington, D.C., I mean, treason has its consequences. That's not me saying it. That's what's on the books. But Liz Cheney or any of these politicians, before they vote to send your sons and daughters overseas to die in some godforsaken desert, maybe they should have to go on the front lines. Maybe they should have bullets flying over their heads so that they can understand the impact of what war does. But she's sitting in her couch in her cozy little apartment in Washington, D.C., just looking at numbers on a screen. Yeah, we'll probably lose a couple hundred soldiers, but that's okay. We're enriching the oil lobbyists, and I'm going to get a big fat payout on the back end. If you're going to vote for war, you should have to carry a gun. Your children should have to go into war, not these poor Americans that didn't sign up for any of this. We shouldn't be in war at all. But Liz Cheney, if you're going to vote for it, then you go first. That's what he was talking about. And by the way, we should be locking up a lot of these people in Washington, D.C.
Increasing federal capital punishment and unleashing the police unrestrained, using the military.
Unleashing police, like when they executed a squirrel? That kind of unleashing the police? And then they want to disarm you. They'll go after squirrels right now. What are they going to do when they take your guns away? This is, folks, if you know someone that watches Joy Reid, I'm sorry for you. This is simply incredible stuff right here. Do you notice how I had to pause this video like every 2 seconds because Joy is just going on these deluded rants with no basis in reality? Yes, it's projection, but it's so much more than that. Like, these are such dishonest, easily proven lies. None of this is true. Say what you will about Donald Trump. None of this is true. None of this.
To suppress protests, banning abortion nationwide by enforcing the Comstock Act.
False. Yeah. There are people out there. I know people that are like, oh, I'm not going to have access to IVF if Donald Trump wins. Like, Donald Trump is the pro-family president. And again, I still have to get to the abortion stuff out there. People aren't voting for Trump because he's not hard enough on abortion. And then you got people over here saying, oh, Donald Trump's going to do all this. Like, Donald Trump has laid out his agenda. He is pro-family. That means abortion is back in the States. He's not going to touch it. That means he wants access to IVF because he wants growing families. People more and more today, because they're on birth control, because their environments are unhealthy, because of the foods they eat, the vaccines they get, all sorts of reasons, and they're just delaying getting married and having kids in general. It's harder for women to conceive. It's harder for families to get pregnant. So Donald Trump wants IVF available so that you can still have a family. He has laid this out time and again, and then she'll still tell you, oh, Trump abortion bans nationwide. Oh, no IVF. Like, just a complete lie. Complete lie.
Persecuting LGBTQ Americans, spiking prices and crashing the economy with across-the-board tariffs that amount to a giant Trump tax on everything you buy that's imported from overseas.
Now we're concerned about rising prices. Donald Trump has promised to abolish the income tax and replace government revenues with tariffs instead. You are an absolute moron if you think you should still pay any money, a penny, to the federal government that has racked up $36 trillion in debt. Do you think these guys care about debt or not having money in the coffers in Washington, D.C.? They will borrow money till the end of the world. Donald Trump, though, if he can abolish the income tax, I will gladly pay whatever small percent increase in prices it is at the store because of tariffs in order to keep all of the money I earn. Right now, I pay 10% in Minnesota state income taxes. I don't need to pay another 25% for federal income taxes. That amounts to pure theft. When it's all said and done, half of my income disappears. And for what? What do we have to show for it? More war?
Firing tens of thousands of dedicated civil servants. And
Yes, please. Donald Trump needs to fire 75% of the federal workforce. I would not feel sorry for them at all. Maybe they're good people. Maybe they have families to support. You don't need to be a leech on the government system. Government is too big. The larger the government gets, the less freedoms you have. That is inevitable. That is the only way it works. I hope Elon Musk and Ron Paul, when they come together in their Government Efficiency Commission, get rid of all of these unelected bureaucrats that have cushy six-figure salaries. They have lifetime pensions. And for what? What do we have to show for it? So I actually like this Trump campaign right here. Oh, he's going to get rid of the workforce. Like, please get rid of the workforce.
Putting people in charge of our government like Elon Musk, who has essentially purchased Trump for $75 million.
I don't have the clip here. And I'm done with Joy Reid. I can't even finish the clip. I think we have like another minute still of her just going on this insane rant. And now she's getting into like Trump ad space because like, yes, please have Elon Musk be part of the government. $75 million from Musk. And then in another MSNBC clip, or I think this is on The View too, they're praising Harris for raising billions of dollars. Like, where do you think that money is coming from? It's not coming from your neighbor down the street who wrote a $20 check to the Harris campaign. It's from billionaire and millionaire donors. So when they get money, when J.B. Pritzker, the billionaire heir, governor of Illinois, supports Dems, that's okay. He's a good billionaire. When these other billionaires, Mark Cuban goes out there and stumps for Kamala Harris, that's okay. But when Elon Musk has his money involved, suddenly that is bad. So these people don't believe a word that they say. It's just insane ranting right here. And I got to be done with Joy. I'm losing it with Joy Reid here. All they do is lie and fearmonger and brainwash you. Folks, if we didn't have MSNBC and CNN, I think Donald Trump wins every single state. The only reason people are voting Democrat is because they listen to hacks, just demons. They're literal demons promoting evil on the airwaves here. But we're not done. We got to go to another rant here. This is what people are talking about. I think this was from last night. Taking a listen to this.
You and John and other great historians often talk about hinge days in history, hinge moments in history, and we could go through them all over the last 250 years in this country. This does feel in many ways like a hinge day, which is to say we're going down one of two very different paths.
I mean, that is true. Both sides are saying it, except one side is correct. The side of me saying it and Elon Musk saying it, saying that this is the most important election of our lifetimes, absolutely true. Your vote will not matter in the future because of the importation of tens of millions of would-be Democrat voters. That's it. Elections are done at this point. They will introduce their race communism. They will make sure that your life is harder as a Trump supporter. They already think you are bitter, clinger, irredeemable, deplorable, a MAGA domestic terrorist. That's what Joe Biden said on multiple occasions. We did the clips last week. Now you're a piece of garbage. Where do you think this rhetoric ends? At 2 Trump assassination attempts? I doubt it. Hillary Clinton at one point said we needed to go to re-education camps if we supported Trump because we are so off base on what we're supposed to be thinking. Everything we say, they would accuse this podcast of being all misinformation. Like, do you think they just live and let live? Like, absolutely not. So yes, it's an important election, but listen to these idiots talk about why they think it's important.
By perhaps tomorrow morning.
Yes, and that's what, if historians in the future are allowed to write books, and by the way, that question is open this morning.
These people are absolutely insane. If historians are allowed to write books, I don't know if he's referencing book bans specifically. I think not. It's like, oh, Hitler burned books or Hitler didn't allow historians. I guess. We don't want sexual content in the hands of a 5-year-old in a government school system. Is it too much to ask for a middle schooler not to read about homosexual fellatio in schools? Like, that is it. That is it.
And if people are allowed to go on television and say what they think.
I will not be allowed to go on this podcast. Harris will come after Rumble and X, the 2 platforms I'm streaming on right now. She has said as much. They want to restrict your access to misinformation, which is code word for you're saying something that the government doesn't sanction. But this guy out here is going to be like, we're going to cut off the airwaves. I just can't.
In the future, which again, that question is open this morning. In the future, historians are going to look back on this day and say, this is the day that America made a choice between freedom and democracy on one side and authoritarianism and dictatorship on the other. Hey,
Michael, can I restate something for you?
Please.
It's not that historians won't be able to write those books. It may be that the billionaires and the corporations that own the publishing houses will refuse to print those books.
this is already a real thing. Try publishing a pro-Trump, America First agenda, or go after the trans ideology, go after the abortion industry. Try getting published by a mainstream publisher. This already happens. We already, as conservatives, seekers of truth, can't do. Morning Joe apparently has no idea about that, and maybe he does and he doesn't care because he's going to lie to you anyways about this. This is just completely insane. And on the point of maybe not being allowed to go on television, David Sachs, a very thoughtful, wealthy man, proposed the idea that maybe these television companies or these corporations should have to pay and bid to get airtime. Right now, we operate under an antiquated law, this notion that, free access to airwaves, let MSNBC have airtime, let CNN have airtime. It's free for them. All they do is promote lies. It's not in the public good. It's not in the public interest anymore. This is pure state propaganda. These corporations, these companies should have to pay for their license. And then once you put a little money on the line, they're going to be on the hook for all that money to buy their license, which will not be cheap. And then they need to get ad revenue from viewers. And if nobody tunes in MSNBC, it's not worth it for them to buy that expensive license. Like, we absolutely need to do something about the corrupt, evil, lying media apparatus right now. It is not in the public interest. It is not honest coverage what they're doing. You can say what you want, but if you're going to be on cable television, you have a little bit of a duty to the American people to try to present the truth. If you want to be an opinion outlet, if you want to stream on Rumble like I do and spout your opinions all day, you're free to do that. But the fact that these giant corporations have free access to airtime in the minds of millions of Americans, this is not healthy.
We have seen that with the LA Times. We have seen that with the Washington Post. I will not get into details. We have even seen that with other countries, liberal democracies who so fear Donald Trump that they are already preparing for the worst. We see billionaires on Wall Street who 6 months ago expressed contempt for Donald Trump. People that walked away from him after January the 6th, saying that he was bad for American democracy, who are now...
Who are these people? Yeah, there's never Trump idiots out there that have always been closeted Democrats, or they've got connections to the establishment. They don't want to lose their gravy train. It all comes back to gravy trains, illegals voting for Dem, all these never Trumper fake conservative pundits. But they don't give you a name. They're just like, yeah, people in Wall Street. Yeah, people in Trump's campaign. Do you know who joined Trump's campaign this time? People that have never voted for him before. RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, Ron Paul. These people, even 6 months ago, in some cases, wouldn't have gone near Donald Trump. But now they recognize the stakes in the election. So every time someone's like, well, people that worked in Trump's administration won't vote for him, they said he's a threat to democracy. Yeah, these people were part of the establishment. Donald Trump, when he was on Rogan, was like, look, I made a mistake. I had to fill all these positions. I didn't know anyone in DC. I listened to these people, or I listened to their suggestions. I put that person in a position. And it turns out they were swamp rats through and through. Donald Trump's not going to make that same mistake again. RFK in charge of overseeing CDC, FDA, that's awesome. Elon Musk overseeing government inefficiencies, that's awesome. This didn't happen the first time around because Trump didn't know any better, and people were afraid to join his team or didn't know much about him. Stakes are different this time, so Trump's got a fantastic team that is ready to rock and roll in Washington, D.C., and these people are absolutely terrified. All right, I think maybe 30 more seconds, because I can't take a lot of Morning Joe either.
Preemptively kowtowing to someone they fear will be an authoritarian leader. So this is not high drama. This is the reality we live in. Who would have ever believed 3 weeks ago that the Washington Post, who rewrote the rules of journalistic history with Woodward and Bernstein by keeping politicians accountable, who would have ever believed a few weeks ago that the Washington Post would have written an opinion endorsing Kamala Harris and their billionaire owner would scuttle it a few days before the election because he was so fearful that a vengeful Donald Trump would go after his business, not just the Post, but Amazon, his.
None of that is true. There's a new hoax that I hadn't heard about before. Donald Trump would have retribution against the Washington Post, and that's why they squashed their endorsement of Kamala Harris. Or it could be that if you're the Washington Post, which only does negative stories on Trump and only glowing stories about Kamala Harris, whose entire editorial board and opinion staff team all votes or donates to Democrats, having such a one-sided outlet of a dying industry, nobody's going to print anymore. Maybe Jeff Bezos, as a smart businessman, was like, I'm alienating half the country. Kamala Harris is a losing candidate. Why am I going to put my reputation on the line as an already dying, discredited news source by endorsing Kamala Harris? How about it's just a good business decision, and maybe, just maybe, the Washington Post should have some MAGA editorialists, some MAGA members on the editorial board. Maybe they could be more representative of this country. Don't we hear that all the time about everything needs to be inclusive and tolerant and representative? Where is the diversity of thought in any of these institutions? But my God, one newspaper, the Washington Post, and another newspaper, the Los Angeles Times, don't endorse a candidate. And to Morning Joe, that means that democracy and the press are under assault. Like, it is absolutely insane what is happening here. I got to be done with Morning Joe. We have gone from Joy Reid to Morning Joe, and I'm going to finish up with our segments with Jen Psaki. I must hate myself so much today, but folks, I'm playing these clips so that you can understand what the other side is saying right now. And you probably could have figured it out. It's going to be unhinged, unfounded ranting. These people are lunatics that do not live in the real world. Their brains have been melted, literally melted, by Donald Trump. TDS has taken over their entire worldview. Nothing they say is true. All they can do is lie. And I've said it before and said it again. If they didn't have lies, they would have nothing to talk about.
I do want to start with those comments because, I mean, your family knows better than just about any family in America the very real consequences of Trump's violent rhetoric. And
because Paul Pelosi had, I guess we'll just assume, was a gay liaison with a homeless guy, or even if it was just an attack on Pelosi, I think the Pelosi attacker is like the one guy in California that commits a crime that went to jail for it. So yeah, I'm sure Pelosi is just like everybody else. She's dealt with the consequences. Never mind the fact that Donald Trump has survived at least 2 assassination attempts that we've heard about, possibly more, because of rhetoric exactly like the Joy Reid rhetoric, the Joe Scarborough rhetoric, Pelosi and Psaki. I'm sure they didn't contribute at all to people hating Donald Trump and thinking he had to die because, we don't want a Hitler in the White House again. But yeah, sure. Let's go with Pelosi's the victim here.
I just want to get your reaction to what he just said at this rally, what we just played for the audience.
Good morning. Wonderful to be with you again on this weekend before the election. I think that what the ex-president just said is a further indication of his cognitive degeneration. You saw recently we was talking about whether he chose electrocution or being eaten by sharks. Something's very wrong there. And
look, Donald Trump's hilarious, but Pelosi is going to lecture us on cognitive decline. Number one, it's Pelosi, who herself is, what, is she 82 or 83 years old at some point? She's clearly lost a step. She covered for Joe Biden, who has never had a step. But yeah, we're supposed to be worked up about Donald Trump's cognitive abilities because he goes on some hilarious riff about how he wants to be executed by the deep state.
Indicative, and it also is diminishing the power of the press, which is the guardian of our freedom in our country.
I got to say it again, folks. Pelosi worked hand in hand. She is part of the deep state, working with big tech companies like Facebook and YouTube and Twitter before it was purchased by Elon Musk to censor your ability to just have an opinion or call out the government for its lies. Ivermectin should have saved everyone's life during the COVID pandemic, but you were told that it's a horse dewormer. It's only safe for animals. You shouldn't take it, otherwise you might die. Instead, you should get this experimental vaccine. The government, alongside Big Pharma and Big Tech, lied to you about ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. They lied to you about the threat of the virus itself, its mortality rate. They lied to you about social distancing. They made up a number because 6 feet sounds nice and it converts to 2 meters nicely in other parts of the world. They lied to you about everything during the pandemic. And if we called them out and said, there is no scientific basis for what you're telling us, we would be kicked off of social media platforms. And we learned from the Twitter files and Biden v. Missouri that it was the government directing that censorship. But sure, Nancy Pelosi wants to tell you that a free press is how we thrive in a democracy. Like, they are so full of shit.
So I think people who might thinking about voting for him have to know that he can't last as president for 4 years with his brain deteriorating at the rate that it is, and is clearly evident. And they may be voting for President Vance, which would be a horrible thing for our country.
His brain is deteriorating. I'm laughing because it is so absurd. And that actually segues to this other point I wanted to make for all of our tedious, suffering family members, friends, neighbors, these pundits on television. Donald Trump is the threat to democracy. All you've heard is Trump, 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 Russia, Russia, Russia. Trump is bad. Trump's evil. And then she throws this line in there about JD Vance would be bad for the country. Never explains how, never articulates why I don't want JD Vance as a president. But they have to connect JD Vance to Trump. A couple years ago, no one would have cared about JD Vance. But this is the problem that they're in now. Trump gets all the hate. They have convinced you to hate Trump. What happens if JD Vance is president? I have been told that I'm a racist and a sexist and a homophobe and a xenophobe and a fascist for supporting specifically Donald Trump. They can't say that about RFK because he's a lifelong Dem. Well, Trump was a lifelong Dem too. Imagine that. Elon Musk, never politically active. Joe Rogan, never politically active. Like, they find themselves in a bind because so many people are supporting Donald Trump for president who are clearly not fascist. Clearly, none of us are, but they can't even make the argument that Joe Rogan is. What do they do when JD Vance gets in the White House? They're going to flip the script and they're going to just continue the brainwashing and say, oh, Vance is everything Trump was, but more. But that's a problem because JD Vance was a nobody not that long ago. He was anti-Trump not that long ago. We've been told specifically that it's Donald Trump that does all these bad things. And if you're honest with yourself as a Democrat voter or a brainwashed sheep that's voting for Kamala Harris this election, you have been told so many times it's Trump. And then you've got to start accepting that it's everybody in Trump's orbit. JD Vance is a Nazi too. He's worse than Trump. He's worse than Hitler and Mussolini and Stalin and Putin and Orban and all these other people. They're going to have to keep ramping this up. And the more they do that, hopefully the harder it gets for Americans to be like, look, all right, you got me. I bought into the lies about Donald Trump. Sure, I believed he was Hitler, but Vance, but Musk, but Rogan, but RFK, but Tulsi, but half this country. Like, at some point, they can't take this rhetoric any further, short of sending us to camps. But JD Vance, clearly not all these things that Donald Trump is that the media makes him out to be. They're going to have a real problem with this. Okay, Ron DeSantis, we were supposed to all vote for Ron DeSantis. What if he's back in the picture again? Like, are they just going to suddenly be like, oh, Ron DeSantis, Nazi too? I mean, they will, but less and less people are going to believe them. They are literally running out of room. When I talk about this being the last election of consequence in our lifetimes if Trump loses, we're at the end of a road for a lot of things here. They can't push these lies much further. They're going to try. People will believe it, but they're going to lose more and more people as it just gets absurd. It has to get more absurd. Donald Trump in 2016 was a racist. They thought that was bad. And then they tried to connect him to white supremacy, which he disavowed, by the way, but edited the clip. So you thought that he supported white supremacy. And then it became Hitler. And then it became all this other stuff. Like, there's only so much rhetoric. There are only so many words in the English language to use to describe somebody. And we are at the end of that. Is it worse than Hitler? I don't think so. And so what happens next? Well, they start assassinating the presidential candidate. And then at some point, if we keep voting for the America First movement, Vance, Vivek, well, again, with Rogan and Musk and RFK's endorsements, like, at a certain point, they realize they can't lie to us anymore, brainwash anymore. It's frightening to think what they would have to do next to accomplish their end goal of absolute power. All right. We are running long here. I wanted to cover this. This is just going to be my little thing, folks. So we're an hour into the podcast. I have to talk about people not voting for Donald Trump. I don't know how many times, how many ways I can say this. You've got to vote for Donald Trump. Your future depends on it. Our country's future depends on it. Your freedoms depend on it. Again, not being hyperbolic. I got to share this screen, though. It's bad enough that we're up against the lies of the ruling media and political class folks. But then we're up against this nonsense as well. This is from someone named Ben Zeisloft. I think he used to work at the Daily Wire. He says he's an evangelical voter. Not my place to question anyone's Christian credentials. That's up to the big guy upstairs, not for me. But I do have a lot of questions. I'm just going to read this guy's long post, and then I have thoughts. I have very strong thoughts on this one. So he writes, Donald Trump could have had my vote had he not started to support most kinds of abortion and vowed to fund IVF with my tax dollars. I am casting my vote for Dusty Devers as president and for Bradley Pierce as vice president. I know that both men fear the Lord and will establish justice if they were elected. I voted for some Republicans in state local races, some third-party candidates like John Thomas who have vowed to protect the preborn and wrote in qualified Christian men when there were no other options. None of this was necessary, he writes. I would have voted for Donald Trump or any other Republican candidate who vowed to protect the preborn and end mass child sacrifice in our nation. If the Republican Party wants evangelical votes, they cannot shirk evangelical policy priorities. And most importantly, they cannot shirk their duty to obey and honor the triune God and govern in their offices with justice and righteousness. I will not reward betrayal with my vote, is what this Ben Zeisloft, moral fraud and coward, writes. I care about one thing only, though, and that is saving as many lives as possible. This, again, moral fraud and coward, Ben Zeisloft, and there are others like him, often in this evangelical community. They think they're too good and too Christian to cast a ballot for Donald Trump because he was a womanizer, or you could grab women by the pussy if you're rich and famous, like Trump said. That is, no one cares about. Monica Lewinsky just came out and endorsed Kamala Harris. Like, no one can speak better to what rich and powerful men do and what women allow these men to do to them better than Monica Lewinsky. But yeah, she has supported the Democrat Party still, so she didn't care. If Kamala Harris wins, this is the only thing that matters. If Kamala Harris wins, Roe will be codified into law, and it will be worse than Roe. I have to remind my audience that Roe, even under Roe, you could still ban third trimester abortion. There were still limitations in place. People think, Democrats, they have no idea what was in Roe. They just think it meant I could have an abortion. States could still legislate against third trimester abortions. They could still put other measures in place. They couldn't restrict abortion completely, but the Supreme Court, when it decided Roe, still allowed states to make different decisions. Kamala Harris, when she reenacts Roe and codifies Roe, she will remove the restrictions that existed under Roe even. You will be able to allow, in Minnesota, for example, you can murder your child after they're born. That will be the law of the land should Kamala Harris win. That means any baby at any time can be murdered by the mother. That's it. No questions asked. No prison sentences for doctors. That's it. Unlimited abortions. This moral fraud and coward, Ben Zeisloft, and again, if you are voting out there for every other Republican or you're not voting for Trump because you're too good for him, just understand that you are allowing Kamala Harris to bring unlimited abortion to the United States. And again, abortion is not my number one issue when I vote, but it seems to be the number one issue for a lot of people out there, so we got to set the record straight. Donald Trump, when he wins, isn't going to touch abortion. He's going to let the states decide for themselves, which is what the goal always was for the pro-life industry. It is a massive grift now. It is a massive con. We always wanted Roe overturned. Trump gets it overturned, and now he's not good enough for your vote. Get out of here with that. If Trump wins, it stays where it is, and states like Texas and Florida and Tennessee, Alabama, Oklahoma, severely limited access to abortion. You are saving lives by doing that. IVF, he's a pro-family candidate. And I understand the moral discussion around IVF. You've got all these fertilized eggs that might be frozen in perpetuity, discarded at a certain point. Maybe not an ideal situation, but you have to decide for yourself what is more evil. Unlimited access to all this or restricted access to all this? Are we children where we want all of something or all of nothing? Like, you need to be an adult. You need to be a mature, responsible, thinking adult. And just ask yourself, what will be better for the preborn in this idiot's words? Will it be more access to abortion or less access to abortion? That's the only thing you need to consider. But these guys out here, Ben Zeisloft, evangelical voter, is too good. He is too good. He's too principled to vote for Donald Trump. What he's allowing then is Kamala Harris to win and destroy everything he stands for. These moral cowards and frauds need to be called out. It is bad enough we're up against this media apparatus that will lie to you all day long. These lying demons of politicians, Kamala Harris and Barack Obama and Joe Biden, lying to you about Donald Trump and lying about everything else that they stand for, pretending they're not absolute race communists who want to destroy your freedoms. And then you've got voters out here that would have voted for Donald Trump, but he hasn't taken an absolute stand against abortion. No abortions in the country, no IVF in the country. Donald Trump's not going to promise to do that, so I won't vote for him. You don't have to like Trump's policies, but you are an absolute fraud and coward if you are going to sit on the fence, be too good. Apparently, I'm just some moron, some dummy voting for Trump, doesn't understand the issues. But this guy's too good for that. He's too smart for that. He's too principled for that. And he's going to let Kamala Harris win to do whatever she wants with the preborn. Get out of here with that. People like this, like I said, it's bad enough we got everything else going on with the lies from media and politics, but then you got idiots like here that threw away their vote to give Kamala Harris a better chance to win in the election. You know what? If Kamala Harris wins, every additional life that is destroyed under her codified Roe, that's on him. That is on the Bens of the world. It is simply stunning what people rationalize themselves. And again, maybe he wouldn't think that way if the media hadn't lied for 10 years. He's like, oh, I don't believe the media lies. I don't like what the Democrats are about. Well, guess what, buddy? Then you got to vote against them. That's it. You got to vote against the Democrats. All right, the last thing here that we need to talk about, though, and again, Polls are open wherever you are in the United States. It is 10:30 local in Minnesota. Every single poll across the nation is open. You need to go vote for Donald Trump. Shut off the Rumble browser, turn down the app, get in your car, go to the polls, bring everybody you know with you to vote for Donald Trump. If you're sticking around, though, the last thing we've got to talk about is that it is okay, apparently, to incite insurrections. It's okay to ignore the will of the people again. Folks are saying, like, oh, I just want today to be over. I don't want to see the campaign ads anymore. I don't want to talk about it. I've got news for you, folks. It doesn't get better after today. It gets worse. And it gets worse either way if Kamala Harris wins, because there goes your country. But it gets worse if Donald Trump wins as well, because they're not going to just let him win. The media and political class has until January 20th, Inauguration Day, to stop Donald Trump from assuming office. They can still ignore the will of the people. They can still insurrect. They can still coup. They can still do things to make sure Donald Trump is not elected into the White House or inaugurated as president. Take a listen to Jamie Raskin. We've got two clips. I'm going to start with the older one, and then he was more recently on Bill Maher. Jamie Raskin, Democrat congressman from Maryland. He's not alone, by the way, but he's the one saying in these two clips, they have planted the seed that they will contest a free and fair election because Donald Trump is such a threat to democracy. They need to erode democracy. Where have we heard that before? They need to erode democracy to save democracy. But this is Raskin last February, I think. And again, this conversation's been going on for a long time, planting the seed that even if you vote for Donald Trump and he wins, the establishment won't let it happen.
To Congress, so it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025 to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in civil war conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job and interpret what the great 14th Amendment means. And I'm glad that Sherilyn's creating her new.
So they want to go after the 14th Amendment. They want to cite Civil War era laws to say Donald Trump incited an insurrection, therefore he is unqualified to hold the office of president. And again, history lesson here, the United States under Lincoln at the time, and then his successor, Andrew Johnson, made it so that if you were a Confederate politician, general, you weren't allowed to hold office again. If you were an insurrectionist, you were part of the Confederacy, you weren't allowed to hold office in the reconnected United States. They want you to think that because Donald Trump said, go peacefully protest, and he said, go home later on. Videos were taken down on Twitter, by the way, at the time. Twitter, before it was X. Donald Trump said, go home. Doesn't matter. He incited an insurrection. So they want to use the 14th Amendment that says Confederate generals, Confederate politicians weren't allowed to hold office. Well, Donald Trump needs to be held to the same standard. So they are setting the seed. And notice how he said the enraged MAGA mob. Yeah, you bet we would be enraged. If we elect Donald Trump as president and he wins the election and you prevent him from holding office, yeah, you can absolutely bet we would have an enraged mob. Here is Raskin again, though, more recently on Bill Maher, explaining, we might not let Trump take office.
Hey, we will support a free and fair election. No, we're not going to allow them to steal it in the states or steal it at the Department of Justice or steal it with any other election official in the country. If it's a free and fair election, we will do what we've always done. We will honor it.
So finally,
that is a lot of qualifications. And that's all I want too, a free and fair election. Too bad we can't have a free and fair election. Too bad we can't have a knowable count, because the election system is designed to make it so that we don't know who actually wins. We don't have measures in place to check IDs. It's illegal in California. I just learned that from Elon Musk, to actually show an ID. Audits. Trump had a lot of audits. Nobody listened to that. Free and fair election. I would love to have a free and fair election, but Jamie Raskin's not talking about an actual free and fair election. He is talking about if Donald Trump wins, then there must have been shenanigans. And look, I'll go on record right now. If Kamala Harris wins, it was stolen. End of discussion. If Kamala wins, they stole the election. Donald Trump should win in a landslide. This is the will of the people today.
Yeah, and that is the Democrats' history. They honor it. That is the big difference between the parties. One of the big. Okay, so.
And on that point,
it is perfectly legal. And in fact, I would argue morally, a moral obligation to contest an election if you think it was stolen from you. 2020 was stolen from Donald Trump. J.D. Vance makes the case that even if you ignore all the shenanigans and the ballots and the weird bellwether states and the counting at 4 a.m. that saw Biden spike through the roof, government colluded with big tech to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story. Time magazine, shortly after Biden was inaugurated, celebrated the fact that people from all backgrounds in the corporate world, big tech world, government world, they all colluded with one another to make sure there was a narrative about Donald Trump to help Joe Biden across the finish line. Like, we have actual definitive proof of a stolen election because the media and political class lied to you so brazenly. In the case of Joe Biden's corruption and Hunter Biden's laptop, they said it was fake news. They said it was Russian disinformation. They polled voters after the fact that said, would you have voted for Biden if you knew the Hunter Biden laptop story was real and not Russian disinformation? And they would have changed their vote. The vote was already stolen. And we know that without even getting into the ballot dumps, the counting. They didn't let us audit some elections in certain states. But yeah, Bill Maher says Democrats respect democracy. Republicans contested the election. Never mind the fact that Democrats, every time Bush won, they contested the electoral count in Congress. I think Raskin was even one of those fools that did in 2016. But yeah, only Republicans are bad when they contest election results.
Tell you, the political scientists have told us the hallmark characteristics of a fascist political party. Number one, they don't accept the outcome of democratic elections that don't go their.
Donald Trump won in 2016, and all you heard from Hillary Clinton on down was that it was an illegitimate president. Donald Trump had the help of Putin to win the election. He was illegitimate. They contested the election for 4 years. They made up Russia, Russia, Russia. We had 2 years of the Mueller investigation. After that, we went right to Trump impeachment number one. Like, these people did not accept the results of 2016 nonstop. But apparently it's only fascist again when Donald Trump does it. Folks, if you are considering voting Democrat and you haven't gone out to vote today, can you please understand that everything you believe is a lie? I mean, I had to stop Joy Reid every 2 seconds. We listen to Morning Joe. We listen to Jen Psaki. You're listening to Raskin like here. Every single thing they are saying to you is a lie. Just a lie.
Way.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
Number two, they embrace political violence as an instrument.
Antifa, Black Lives Matter. Do I really need to go on about embracing political violence? They are boarding up Washington, D.C. today. Other big cities are boarded up. That's not for the event of a Kamala Harris victory. If Donald Trump wins, this is kind of my tragic prediction. There will be violence in the streets. Thank goodness I live out in the rural area of Minnesota. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near a big city right now if Kamala Harris loses, because their street thugs will cause absolute chaos in the streets. People will get hurt tonight if Trump wins. Make no mistake.
Instrument for obtaining power. And three, they're not organized democratically. They're organized top down as a cult of a personality around a charismatic or allegedly charismatic.
I hate this man so much. I hate everything about the show today that we've had to talk about. If Donald Trump weren't on the ticket, I would still vote for his movement. None of us are in a Trump cult. Trump is the figurehead of the movement right now. He's the only one that was brave enough to expose the media and political rot in 2016 when he came down the escalator. 2020, he ran again. 2024, he's running again. He is the leader of a movement that is so much bigger than him at this point. When Donald Trump goes away in 2028 because he won't be eligible for office anymore, I will proudly and loudly support the successor to the MAGA movement. The Republican Party of old is dead. We're not going back to the Mitt Romneys and the John McCain candidates, these fake Republicans, fake conservatives, certainly. They were Republican because I don't think the Republican Party lied to us. They are who they are. They were just frauds. They were part of the establishment uniparty. Donald Trump changed all of it. The MAGA movement is here to stay. In 20 years, it'll still be an America First GOP now. It is not a cult of personality. It is a desire to have Americans represented in their democracy again by their government. So when they lie about, oh, I'm just brainwashed by some cult leader, it could be anybody. It doesn't have to be Donald Trump. But Donald Trump's taking the bullets for us right now. He's taking the lawsuits right now. He was the one that stood up to the regime, the political and media liars. No one else was willing to do that, and Trump did. And when Vance runs for office in 2028, or Vivek, or DeSantis, or whoever it may be, they'll still get our vote. I mean, what are they going to say in 2028? All these Trump supporters are brainwashed. Well, guess what? Trump's not in the picture anymore, and we're still enthusiastic about the America First movement. These guys are such hacks. And, you know, he's like, oh, supposedly charismatic. I don't know what to tell you. Trump is extremely charismatic. They're just lying. Like, you have to admit, even if you hate Trump, you have to admit he's charismatic. But they lie to you about everything. They just lie to you about everything. And folks, with that, I kind of wanted to get into some post-election stuff. Raskin kind of previews that. There will be chaos in the streets. There will be an attempted coup against Donald Trump when he wins the Electoral College. They will do everything in their power to make sure he's not inaugurated. It doesn't stop today. It's just getting started. You are going to see the wickedness of the establishment after Donald Trump wins today. And Elon Musk said he thinks there's going to be a winner announced tonight. I like to think so too, because Trump's going to get Pennsylvania. It looks like he could get Virginia. He's going to get Georgia. He's going to get North Carolina. A lot of these East Coast states that report first are going to go to Trump. And then when we get to Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, like I said, I'm crossing my fingers for Minnesota maybe. By the time we get to these Arizona, Nevada states out there that Nevada was like, oh, we won't know the results for a couple of weeks. Like, it might not matter at that point, but we have to go vote to make sure it doesn't matter at that point. Go vote. Your life depends on it. The future of your country depends on it. But make no mistake, it's only getting started. They will do everything in your power, things you can't even imagine. The establishment is going to go after Donald Trump so hard to make sure he is not inaugurated in January of 2025. Stop the line, though. Stop believing their lies. Drag your friends, family members, and neighbors to the polls right now. I am on my way to vote. I vote in person every year. I've always said voting should only be done on Election Day, make it a national holiday. So stand by that word. I am going to vote right now for Donald Trump. I cannot wait to fill in that circle. Folks, we've got a country to save. Thank you for tuning in today. This is the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. I'm back on Thursday at 9:30 Central. We might have a presidential winner announced by Thursday on the show here. Vote for Donald Trump, folks. Let's have a celebratory podcast live, 9:30 Central on the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. Thanks for tuning in. Go vote. Have a great day.